Hi, thanks for joining. My name's Rob, and today I'm going to be taking you through all of the different options that you have for adding text to Flexitive. Now, I'm going to jump right in, and on the left-hand side, you'll see there's the Add Text button in the panel, and I'm just going to click on that, and that's going to add a text box to the canvas for me to work with today. Now, I'm just going to quickly resize, reposition that, but by default, adding text to the canvas is going to open up the Text Settings panel on the left. And in the text settings panel, there's options for text box and inline, two different tabs. Now, when you're working in the text box tab, changes you make affect the entire text box at once. So I can change the font, I can change the color of the font for the entire text box all in one motion. Now, if I jump into inline, you'll notice that I'm actually now able to select my text if I'd like. This allows me to make changes to only specific parts of my text. So say, for example, if I want edit and me to be two different colors, I can just jump in here. Say, for example, change my color to be black, and I have two different colors of text. Now, there are going to be some options that are only available when you're working inline, and there are going to be other options that are only going to be available when you're working in the text box. Some really important examples for options that are available when inline are the option to actually change the text itself. So, for example, I can make this say, celebrate coffee. I can also insert images, I can insert URLs if I'd like. I can even create bulleted lists and numbered lists as well as charts if I would like. Now, I'm also going to align this to center. This is available for both, but of course, alignment affects the entirety of the line of text that I'm working with here. And then from here, I can change the font as well. Now, in the text box settings, a large number of those options are still available. Things like your text color, your font size, line height, and text tracking. Those will all be available within your text box view as well, but changes made here will affect the entire text box at once. So for example, if I change the color of the font to be white, very, very quickly, I can change the entire text box at once. And then from there, I can change the size of the text. So say, for example, I can up that like so. And then, of course, I can change the font itself. Now, in Flexitive, you actually have access to over 700 fonts for free. Now, these are mostly provided for through Google Fonts, but there also are the option of a couple different freefonts.com fonts. Now, if you would like, you can also, with a paid fonts.com subscription, get access to over 20,000 fonts. You just got to toggle paid on, and then search for the fonts you need. So for example, if you wanted to add Arial, which is a paid fonts.com font, you could add that like so. Just going to toggle this off here. And I'm going to be using a free Google font today. So we're just going to use Roboto. And then from here, we can change the styling as well. So I'm just going to change the styling to be Book 300. Using styling, you can change the font weight. You can also choose italic styling if you'd like. I'm just going to use a simple Book 300. Now, when you are choosing your font, there are going to be some situations where the font that you need isn't available in Flexitive by default. Now, in those situations, you can always choose to upload a custom font as well. So I'm just going to quickly show you how to do that. In the font section, you can see there's this upload button here. So I'm just going to click on that quickly. And it's going to open up this modal for you to upload a custom font. Now, from here, you can either browse through your computer for that zip file, or if you've got it handy, you can always just choose to drag and drop it onto the canvas. I actually have my font here. Just going to drag and drop that in, and it'll upload the files for me. Now, when you're uploading this zip file, it needs to be a self-hosting kit, which means that all of the code and all of the font files that you need to serve this design across any browser would be included in that self-hosting kit. If you're not sure how to create a self-hosting kit, or if you're not sure if you have one right now, you can always get in touch with your font provider. They'll usually have the ability to send you a self-hosting kit. It really is just another kind of font file that you can use here. As you can see, I've now got this uploaded font. It's specified as different by using this little, you can see uploaded here, and the name will be displayed as uploaded font because that's the name of the font in this case. Now, I'm going to actually stick with Roboto here, so I'm just going to jump back over to those options. But that's how you can really quickly upload a font to Flexitive. So now that I've got the font styling, the color of this text all lined up, I want to quickly show you how I can resize this for different canvas sizes. So right now, I'm actually pretty happy with how this looks, but if I wanted to change the line breaks, for example, or the size of the font, there are two different options for how to do that. First option is to resize your text box from a corner. And you can see that as I resize from a corner, the size of the font stays completely unchanged, but the line breaks do update for me. Conversely, if I start resizing the text box from an edge, as I shrink it, the font size actually shrinks. And as I grow it, the font size will grow. So using those two options, I can really quickly make edits to both the font size and the line breaks for my design. Within working with line breaks, and then I scroll down near the bottom of the panel, you'll see there's this text wrap option. Now, by default, it's set to wrap by words, but there are a couple different options as well. Now, there are going to be some situations where you don't want your text to wrap at all. If I click that, you'll see that no matter what I do, the text doesn't ever line break unless, I'm just going to double click in to go into inline mode. I put a hard line break in by pressing enter on my keyboard. This is typically going to be used if you've got a line of text that can only ever be displayed in one line. And it gives you a little bit more control over how that text is going to go through its line breaks. Similarly, we can also set the text wrap to be on wrap letters. If I do wrap letters, as I resize this here, you'll see that individual letters will flick over to the next line as the text box gets too small. Usually, you're going to want this to be set to wrap words, which is why we've set it as our default, but of course you can always change that. From here, just going to quickly align these three different elements. Clicking Align to Group, there we go. And there are a few more quick options that I did want to cover with this particular text box. Now, mentioned already the alignment options, but here again, you can change the alignment to be right aligned, center aligned, or left aligned if you'd like. I think this one looks best center aligned. And then from here, one final option that I can cover with this text box is this drop shadow option. Now, turning drop shadow on automatically applies a gray drop shadow behind the text box. And then you can control the height of that drop shadow using this option here. And this allows you to kind of adjust how far away the drop shadow looks. And you can see as it gets further and further away, kind of becomes blurrier. It's a really quick way to easily add a drop shadow to your design. Now, there are going to be some instances in Flexitive when working with text where the amount of text you have just doesn't fit in the bounding box you're working with. And in these situations, it may be best to add scrolling text. Now, I have an example of that here. I'm just going to double click in, and you can see there's actually a lot of information just doesn't fit in the text box that I'm working with. So I'm going to jump over into my text box options in the text settings panel, scroll down, and you'll see there's this option to add a scrolling text. So if I click on that, turning that on, scroll bar automatically appears with some default values, and now this text is going to be scrollable. So it's not going to be visible in the actual editor. I'll still have to double click in and scroll through my text. But once I go into the actually published version of this design, the text is going to be scrollable with this scroll bar. Now, there are a couple different options once you turn scrolling on. The first ones are going to be with the scroll bar itself. So you can toggle the scroll bar to either show on or off. Turning it off just kind of sets the scroll bar to be invisible on the screen. Turning it on will give you that scroll bar, and you can set the width by pixels. Right here it's defaulted to 14. And then you can set margins on the left and right of the scroll bar. So setting a margin to the right will put a little bit of space between the scroll bar and the right edge of the bounding box. You can see there. Just set that back to 0. And scrolling it to and adding a margin left, if I say bump this up to 7, you can see there's now a little bit of space between the text and the scroll bar itself. Now, second option that you do have with scrolling text is to implement an auto scroll. Now, turning auto scroll on is going to make it so that when I preview or export this design, that design is going to automatically scroll through the text in the final published version. So I can have that scroll in a vertical or horizontal direction, and then I can choose from one of these 7 different speeds. By default, we kind of choose 3, which is a little bit of an in-between state, but you can choose from any of those speeds and pick and choose which one works best for you. You can also set your auto-scrolling text to automatically stop if someone interacts with that text box, and you can also set it to loop continuously if you so wish. Now, the final setting is this delay setting with auto-scroll. If you turn this delay on, so set it to a non-zero value, it's going to wait that number of seconds until the design actually starts scrolling through that text. Now, that's everything I was looking to cover regarding text today. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out using the contact support option up here. It's the best way to get in touch with us. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. But until next time, thanks so much for joining and have a great day.